the first speaker on my list here is Muhammad Abdul Ghaffar, who is the advisor to the King of Bahrain, but he has an intimate connection in the sense that he was a student here in Pune, and that's where his career began. Now he has risen to become the advisor to the Amir of Bahrain, and in between he has served as the ambassador to the US, to Canada, to Argentina, permanent representative to the United Nations, and so on. He is going to speak to us on potential strategic cooperation among pivotal states in Western Asia in light of current regional and international changes. Ambassador Ghaffar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dettel, for your kind introduction. And I would like to thank the Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis for inviting me to be part of this very important conference. And thanks go to Dr. General Gupta, because I came last year to establish a sort of link between Bahrain Center for Strategic Studies and this center. So I'm glad to be here again. My remarks concentrate on a sort of cooperation in Western Asia, but the ideas which I'm bringing with me, it's away from power politics. We know all that the current international equilibrium is undergoing profound and historical changes that will lead to unconventional results in the strategic international balance of powers. This is apparent looking at the economic structural problems facing the United States and Europe, and the implications of these countries' policies, such as the U.S. changing defense policy over the next 10 years. Foremost among such results is the return of the regionalism concept once again. Western Asia is deemed one of the models constituting an important strategic region containing pivotal states, namely the GCC countries as a regional organization, India and other countries such as Iran and Pakistan. Cooperation among them may lead to the rise of a new geostrategic reality that is more positive than the currently prevailing regional atmosphere. I try to, in my paper, to explain the concept of pivotal states. From my point of view, that there are certain meanings for this. According to these criteria, the concept of pivotal refers to a country or a group of countries having the tools of power and influence within a specific region according to many criteria, including the degree of social, economic, political, and organizational integrity. So I don't want to go a lot on theoretical framework in my paper, but I think that there are types of pivotal states in Western Asia. Pivotal states in Western Asia can be divided into three categories. First, countries engaging positively with the regional and international milieu. Countries engaging negatively at the regional and international level. And countries that vacillate between positive and negative engagement due to certain or specific circumstances. To elaborate, we can initially say that countries engaging positively with the regional and international milieu build a sort of coordination among themselves. So pillars of pivotal states, they can play a very positive role, but there are certain common things among these Western among these West Asian countries to play this role. First of all, I think there is historical background which we shares. If we go back to history, between my country, Bahrain, there was a Dilmun civilizations, 3000 BC in Bahrain, and the cooperation was between Indus civilization and Dilmun civilizations. If we go to a later stage, we realize that cooperation prevailed in Western Asia in ancient times, and also a period from 2058 and 1498. Despite the flourishing of a trade hundreds of years before that period, 1258 witnessed the transition of land trade from India and China through Asia to the Indian Ocean, passing through Egypt after the Mughals invaded and captured Baghdad. So the first idea which I believe in, that we have historical common base for West Asian countries to cooperate in a model which mainly depend on economic development and trade for the prosperity of our people. Historically, if we look not only historically and geographically, when we look at the Arabian Gulf all the way to Oman Sea, Indian Ocean, until we come to this very important country, India. It was a very big amount of trade among these countries, and they lived in a very peaceful time depending on trade. So we can revive such ideas depending on the trade and economic development, and go away a little bit of power politics and strategic calculations here and there, which we see it very clearly in our region. Regarding current international changes, the international scene is currently undergoing important strategic changes, foremost among which is the U.S. withdrawal from several parts of the world, including Iraq in 2011 and Afghanistan in 2014. In addition to the changes in the energy market, in this context, it is worth highlighting three issues, namely, first, the argument about the nature of the U.S. role abroad from now onwards, in light of the announcement by the U.S. administration that it will be reducing U.S. military expenses by nearly $487 billion over the next 10 years. This announcement came in light of the economic crisis facing the USA, as official U.S. sources indicate that the total U.S. domestic debt increased 16 trillion in 2012. Second, the evolving role of the Asian pivotal states at the regional and international level currently and in the future, especially both India and China. Third, the World Energy Outlook 2012, issued by the International Energy Agency, forecast that the 2020 the U.S. will surpass Saudi Arabia as the biggest oil producer in the world. The report also indicated a continued fall in the U.S. oil imports to the extent that North America becomes a net oil exporter around 2030. It also mentioned that the United States currently imports around 20% of its total energy needs. These all are indicators that the U.S. role towards the world might undergo change. So I don't want to go too much in this point, but I want to concentrate on areas of cooperation among pivotal states in Western Asia. At the strategic level, of course, there are several regional organizations, but I believe that we need some fresh ideas about how pivotal states in West Asia can cooperate among themselves in order to be away a little bit of power politics which we see in the region. And I don't mean that we have to go away from the main superpowers who are very important for our interests also and for their interests. Mutual interest should be one of the main criteria for establishing this idea of West Asian countries cooperating in a new way because of the changes in the international arena. At the security level, of course, there are several cooperations, but we have to expand that. For example, the Kingdom of Bahrain participate in the Combined Maritime Forces, which compromises 27 member nations. This coalition comprises of 3 principal task forces. Task Forces 150 for maritime security and counter-terrorism, Task Force 151 counter-piracy, 52 is for counter-piracy, 51 is for counter-piracy, and 152 is Arabian Gulf security and cooperation. And Bahrain command this force twice, because every 3 months I think there should be a new country to command this force. So this is a good cooperation, but we need a sort of West Asian input more in the concept of the security in the region. On the economic level, I have many figures here, but I don't want to mention that the GCC countries and India in commerce, there's a big increase in the last 16 years, and I think we have some experts on economic issues here. They know that the figure is increasing, and that's why I think that the importance of India led that many Gulf countries leaders, they visited India, but we feel that Indian visits are not on a high level. So I think Indian foreign policy, from my point of view, needs more activity in our region, because there is a big interest for India, and India can gain a lot by coming more and more to our region, because we know that India is a peaceful country. India doesn't have geostrategic calculations or hegemony. So that's why India is a very accepted country in the region. Regarding the GCC, GCC has a power of wealth, if I may call wealth a power, but also GCC realize that the world is changing, and that's why the process of reform started in GCC from last decade. The reform may not be the way which some people agree with us, but as Dr. Detel eloquently said, that change, regime in change. So I think our governments and our countries are in the process of change, in the process of democratization, and not necessarily that the people is against the regime, because I read many people. For example, I read a book when the late King Fahd got stroke, and when I read an American research, I started first smiling little bit and more, because the writer who wrote this seems that he doesn't know the inside information in Saudi Arabia. So he was expecting a lot of things, he was saying a lot of information here and there, but the conclusion was not correct. We know that the succession is Saudi is very smooth. The royal family is very connected with the people in Saudi Arabia through tribes, through other social ties which they have. Similar things we can find it in other Gulf countries. So economically, I think we are also changing, because some people don't concentrate that we had also an educational spring which started in early 1970s. In that spring, Gulf countries educated thousands and thousands of their students in the best universities in the world and in our universities. Now we have some universities in the region which is excellent universities. So we had also this educational spring in the Gulf region beginning in the 1970s. I think I have little time, so just I want to talk a little bit about the Gulf cooperation as a strategic, organizational, regional group. The main concern for the 6 countries that how we can transform cooperation into a more cooperation or a sort of confederation or even union according to the charter of the Gulf, to the GCC. So this is one of the main ideas that our leaders are discussing, and there will be a summit in month of May in Saudi Arabia to discuss particularly this question. Secondly, militarily speaking, in Bahrain summit last December, there was an agreement on establishing a unity of military command. So there is now one military GCC command, and this is also a new development in military cooperation among the 6 countries. So in the future, we feel that the Gulf countries are going to cooperate among themselves more and more, and secondly, to establish more strengthening relationship with Asia. Thirdly, I think the GCC countries know that the youth generation is very, very important. So youth is very, very important for us, and all these governments working on ideas, on studies, how we can accommodate the youth of our countries, which are very active in many, many things. So GCC countries, I think, will witness development in the coming years. But as the Professor Data said, that it is a regime in change, and we are really living in change. But hopefully that West Asian countries also come with us in order to think about creation a sort of relationship which will help West Asian countries, especially those within the Indian Ocean, Oman Sea and Arabian Gulf, that how we can come together and think in a very positive way in order to build political stability and prosperity for our people. Thank you very much.